The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelets is a collection of photo tutorials for beginners that will take you all the way from the basics to the more advanced stuff. It is now available for purchase worldwide anywhere you typically buy books, and there is also a direct link in the description. Hello, my name is Masha Nuts, and today I want to teach you how to make this gorgeous friendship bracelet. I loved this pattern so much that I absolutely had to make 2 of them, and I really enjoy how the colors work in both of these bracelets. This bracelet is really fun and super easy to make. There's only 2 repeating rows to this one. Going into this tutorial, I expect that you know how to make the basic knots. So in the tutorial, I won't be explaining how to make them, I'll just be telling you which knot to make. If you need help with that, I have a separate tutorial for it, which will be linked in the card and in the description. I wouldn't recommend this to be your first bracelet if you're just starting out, but if you've made a couple of bracelets before, this is one that you can probably try out. That said, let's get into the tutorial. I forgot to record the visuals, so let's do a voiceover. There are 6 colors in this bracelet, and if you're going to be doing a loop like me, you're going to need 1 string per color, roughly 2 meters in length. If you're doing a start that doesn't involve folding the strings, then you'll need 2 strings per color, 1 meter in length. So I actually decided that I want to do a teardrop loop for this bracelet, which if you're familiar with patterns, this is where I want to start my bracelet. And if you look at the colors that go into this pattern at this point, you'll notice that a lot of the colors, all but 2 actually, are all on the same side. So I can't really do a traditional loop where the strings just kind of drape off either side, because for that you need at least 1 string per color to be on either side. So I'm going to do something different here. The only 2 strings that don't have this happen are the dark pink, so I'm going to separate that one out, and the light green, so I'll separate that one out as well. In fact, I didn't actually need to separate the strings here as I did. I could have just done all the greens on one side and all of the pinks on the other. I realized it further into filming, so I'm going to make a note here and then explain what I would have done differently once I get to the point in the video where I explain how I actually did it. For the record, you can actually do it how I did it. It turned out fine for me, it's just unnecessarily complicated. But let's continue for now. Now for the rest of these, the pinks are on one side, the greens are on the other side, so I'm going to separate them in pairs. And these are the tips of the loops for each of these. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to intertwine these loops so that they match at the tip, which looks like this. Carefully make sure that your strings are actually the same length, but once you intertwine the loops like so, you're essentially creating a whole new loop. And now all of these strings are on one side and all of these strings are on the other. We need to remember the 2 strings that we took out. Since both of those exist on both sides of the loop, we can just use them as normal. And we place the tip of their loop to the tip of this loop, folding them over so the color is on either side. And the same thing for the green one. Now all of my strings are in the correct order. I'm ready to start making the loop. So this loop is obviously a little bit different to typical loops. You started off as a typical loop. The only thing that would be different is once you get to that connection, you just have to be extra careful about going over it. Let's go over it together. You just see that as I'm slowly getting closer and closer to that connection, I'm slowing down a little bit. I'm trying to be more precise with my knots, like this one, for example. I'm just making sure that everything looks about the same size and it's not going to widen slightly at this area. And maybe I'll fiddle a little bit with my finger to make sure that everything is nice and even. Continue making the loop as normal. Now that my loop is done, I want to make the teardrop loop start. In order to do that, I need to bring the strings out one by one in the order that the pattern requires. I have a separate tutorial on teardrop loops that goes in detail about this. I'll leave that linked in the card and in the description so you can watch that. All you need to know is that color order to be able to do this. And on the left side, this will be the dark pink string, the 2 medium pink strings, the 2 light pink strings, the light green string. On the right side, it'll be the light green string, the 2 medium green strings, 2 dark green strings, and 1 dark pink string. And this is the point where I would do things differently. I would bring the colors out in a slightly different order, specifically with the 2 strings that are in the center. The green string that's on the left side, I would actually put that on the right side, and then the pink string that's on the right side, I would actually put that on the left side. I know that it doesn't say that in the pattern, which makes it extra confusing, but once we're going to get to the center to connect the teardrop together, we're going to be making a forward knot between them, which will essentially swap them into their correct places. If none of what I just said makes any sense, just follow what I did in the tutorial. That also works, and it's probably a lot easier to understand with an actual visual. I apologize for this. I only noticed it when it was way too late in the process to refilm it, so let's just go with it. And you bring them out one by doing a backward knot onto the entire bundle with the color. The dark pink is already brought out since we were doing the loop with it, so I'm going to leave that there. We've got 2 medium pink strings on the left side, so they just do a backward knot onto the entire bundle as you bring them out. So I'm going to bring all of my colors out and begin the tutorial. And here we've got the light green string on the left, the dark pink string on the right. We actually need them to stay in these positions, which is exactly why it would have been better to keep the colors together and then swap them here by doing a forward knot. But if you're following the visuals of this tutorial, this also works. So instead of doing a forward knot, which is something that I would typically do, I'm actually going to do a forward backward knot to keep these in the same positions. And as always, whenever connecting any kind of loop, you want to be very careful with that connection. Alright, the loop is done, we are ready to start making the bracelet. So there are only 2 repeating rows to this pattern. It's a very simple pattern to follow. That being said, there's kind of 4 steps to it. Let's start with the right side. I'm going to separate all the strings on the left side, put them off to the side so they're not in the way, and just focus on this part for now. On this side, we're going to be focusing on the outermost string, which in this case is the light green string. Every single string after the light green string on the right side is going to be doing a forward knot onto this green string. One by one. This string does a forward knot on the green string, followed by this string, followed by this string, and this string. Every single one individually is making a forward knot onto the light green string on the outermost edge. Let's do it. If this is your first row after the connection and you make a mistake where you pull too hard and the knot comes a little bit loose, I've made it very loose and I'm going to fix it real quick to go over that connection again. And there we go. Now this last string can do that forward knot onto the light green string. Alright, that first part is done. Now we're going to do something very easy. The outermost string on the left side, which is also this dark pink string, is simply going to do a row of forward knots along each of these strings until it gets to the center. There's 6 strings here, so this pink string does 6 forward knots. And that is the entirety of row 1. Pretty simple. Row 2 is the exact same thing, but in reverse. This time we're putting the right side off to the side and focusing on the left part. Here we're taking the outermost string, which is this medium pink color, and we are going to be doing backward knots with each of the strings following it onto that string. So 5 consecutive backward knots from each of these strings onto this one. And once that is done, for the second part of this row, take the outermost string, which is a medium green here, and we do 6 backward knots with it along each of these strings individually. Same thing that we did for row 1, except in opposite. And that's it. It may not look like much, especially because we literally just started, but that's it. Those are all the 2 repeating rows. The colors have changed, the strings have slightly reshuffled, but you continue doing the same thing over and over again until the bracelet reaches the length that you want. This tutorial is timestamped for your convenience, so you can jump to the beginning of it, or the pattern is linked in the description if you prefer to follow that. Either way, continue making the bracelet until it reaches the length that you desire, and I'm going to be finishing it with a triangle end. I have a separate tutorial on triangle ends, which I will link in the description as well for your convenience. And here's what the bracelets look like when they're done. As I said, I made 2. I love how the colors turn out in both of them, and I made twisted ties for each of them. You can definitely tell which one I made with cats and which one I didn't. I think I might actually make more of these bracelets. I just really love the pattern. It's an absolute favorite of mine now. And if you also make this bracelet, make sure to tag me in any pictures that you post, because I absolutely love seeing your creations. If you have any questions following the tutorial, make sure to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. I also want to give a special shout out to my patrons, and especially my top supporters. It is with your support that I'm able to create the videos that I do on this channel, so I appreciate it immensely. If you also want to become a patron and support the work that I do here, the link to that is in the description. My book, The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelets, is also now out. You can buy it anywhere you typically buy books. It has plenty of photo tutorials all the way from the basics to the more advanced stuff. But in any case, I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!